Yeah, I'm John Howard at the BBC. I've been at BBC for about 13 years now, in BBC Children's. My role has been, looking at cutting edge things and making cutting edge things become activities and useful products that children can engage with. So over the last few years, that's been leaning much more towards AI, etc. So let's walk through this. But before we get going, I know this is just after food, so maybe that your body's digesting it and you'll start sinking into the stupor of post-food. So I'm not saying that to you, but if you were sat at home typing a message, what's in your state of mind if you just type that? Anger, maybe it's banter, maybe that's how you usually talk to your friends. What's your intent?
Express emotion.
You got to express emotion. You probably want to hurt somebody, don't you? You want to. Hang on. No, let's flip that and say, you just received it. Now, what's in your head? How are you receiving? Broken.
Define hate.
Yeah, define hate. Well, maybe that's not the first thing that will come. Oh, somebody said they hate me. Oh yeah, what do they mean by hate? Maybe they mean love. Maybe I hate you. I've just won an award and they didn't. So maybe it is banter, that kind of thing. But yeah, with that in mind, we were looking at with conversation online. When a child goes into a room, there's a bunch of adults, maybe one of their parent or carer, and them mucking about. All they have to do is look up and see on the parent's face or the carer's face a reaction, and they can adjust their behaviour to fit into the norm or the expected behaviour within that situation. When kids are online, they don't get that. So what if we developed a system where you had a face that they could look at and that could reflect back? And that's kind of one of the core propositions or core hypotheses of the project we're working on. Well, first, we did a lot of research, running the project for 3 years now, from discovery through to release now. At the beginning, we went and spoke to a lot of children, a lot of parents, etc. I'm going to show you a clip of some kids. We went into a school and got them to talk about the things that they'd seen online, messages that had been posted to them, the ones that were upsetting, the ones they felt were positive. And here are some kids who offered to read them out on camera.
Sounds cute. That's horrible. A few of them is really nasty. I like your hair. Oh, thanks. I had a new pattern now. Your brows are literally goals. Hashtag on fleek.
It's a really nice comment for a girl to have if someone tells you you have goals, eyebrows, and it's like, whoa.
I love you. You brighten up my day.
Your YouTube channel is rubbish and you should delete it.
Literally no one wants you around or loves you. That's not nice.
You have no friends and nobody cares about you. You're just annoying.
Do you know what? Nobody likes you, nobody even needs you. Nobody cares about what you think, what you want and what you care about. That one's probably the worst one I've read.
Do the world a favour and kill yourself.
Kill yourself, gay boy.
You are worthless. They're just such horrible things to have and to receive.
You're ugly. Everyone hates you. Don't know what to say to that. It's important to focus on the good things in life. Bad things will always be there to push us down, but we have to get up and we have to keep on going.
I'll be there, don't worry. That will give you a boost and that someone's looking out for you and caring for you.
You're so beautiful and strong. Keep catching up on it.
you should use social media to be nice to people, to be kind, to have a bit of a laugh, have banter with your friends, but never anything hurtful like the messages in there.
Yeah, it's a powerful movie, that one. You know, the kids are going through a lot of things that we didn't have to go through in their lives in terms of being publicly exposed in that way. So we know that at the age of 8, 5% of kids have a social media presence. By the age of 12, that's 70%. And we know that, you know, obviously the minimum age for social media platform is 13, so there's a massive problem there that kids are exposed to, and not a huge amount of support. Okay, that was kind of impactful. But now, family fortunes. Some of you may not realise it's got different names in different territories, but we're going to have a quick game. So who's a parent here? So we've got a few. Who's a parent of kids who've got phones? So we may have older kids. So we're going to ask a question, and we'll do it as a group. I could have got some people up and embarrassed the individual. We'll do it as a group and see. In fact, I've not had a group actually win this one yet. I've done it a few times. This is the question. 100 people asked what most concerns parents about their child's internet use. Go on and have a shout out.
Pornography.
Pornography. Is that in the top 5? Oh no, I've gone the wrong. Sorry. There we go. Is that in the top 5? No, that's not. Love that sound effect. It took a long time to fix that.
Violent imagery.
Oh, let me just explain that one.
Yeah.
I'll come back to that. Inappropriate content, pornography, came in at 8th place with about 32% of parents being worried about that. You're saying
Like violent imagery. Like
violent imagery
executions and stuff.
comes under the same banner of inappropriate content.
Access to narcotics or drugs.
Access to narcotics or drugs. Come on, you're an educated bunch here. The narcotics or drugs, that didn't even get on the list.
Getting hold of their parents' credit card details and spending those money.
Spending loads of money. Do we have a winner? Yes, we got one. 41%, well done. We've only got one chance left now.
Wasting time.
Wasting time. So that's the attention economy. You know, when you're. I really thought you guys
Do better.
No, wasting time online came at 7th. That was about 37% of parents were worried about that. Let's go through the results backwards. In 5th place, now this is a fairly obvious one based on, if anyone knows anything about the Angus app, and that's cyberbullying. But only in 5th place. So, personal details to inappropriate people and meeting inappropriate people online. Reputation. This is damaging your future reputation. We know it's become a big subject. But the number 1, and by a distance, you can see that's quite a close collection there. Number 1 by a distance is data collection. So parents, that's generally got through to parents that, you know, that sharing data is, and data privacy is kind of key. So, the core of the Own It app, as we got from it, is based on cyberbullying, and it came out of Prince William's Royal Cyberbullying Task Force. Now that was William gathered together Apple and Google, the Facebook, Snapchat, and the social media platforms, the telecoms, the charity sector, and the BBC sat around a table with meetings over time. They looked at rights, they looked at a lot of things. But you know, there was a point in time when he said, "What is there a technical solution? Is there something we can do technically that will help children?" So the question became, how might we use new technologies to support children who are experiencing cyberbullying? So around the table, the platforms and the social media platforms were kind of saying, "Well, we can't work with those guys because you know we've got a profit motive here, and you know USPs, that kind of thing." So. It was then Alice Webb represented the BBC put a hand up and said, well actually BBC's got a public purpose, so we've also got a very good children's department that works in the UK, We put out digital products, so we're the perfect people. We can be the travel plug, so everyone else can work with us, even if they don't want to work together. So that's when I got handed the project, and the question was, how might we use new technology to support children who are experiencing cyberbullying online? Day one, we draw this thing, which we've now called the cone of despair. So here, the kids are getting cyberbullied, and here is everyone. And we kind of think, well, as a BBC thing, that we don't do targeted audiences, we do big audiences. So we, let's scratch that question and just change it. How might we use technology to help all children deal with drug dilemmas, social friendship issues, and everyday life, and that would include this audience here. So that's kind of where we moved to. We know that in 2014, 2015, 25,000 children were referred to mental health services. Within 2 years, that had jumped to 35,000. We started asking around trying to find out why. There hasn't been any academic research as to the exact causes, but the behavioural specialists were pointing at one thing: the massive rise in the use of smartphones. So we, rather than wait for proof of that, it's kind of like, let's make that as an assumption, and that can be disproved later, at which point we won't have done any harm if we have moved down this road. So we know that kids are getting their phones between the age of 8 and 12. Well, at least we did, until a report came out this week that nudged the first phone delivery from what we had as about just on the cusp of 8 and 9 has now moved to the age of 7 as the average, not the beginning of the graph, that's the peak. So that's got us scratching our heads a little bit, because we didn't realise the data was flowing in that direction. But yeah, imagine you're a 17-year-old and different countries, different ages, but in the UK, 17 is when you can drive. Imagine David, 17th birthday, you get given the car keys, never had a lesson, you're allowed to go on the road. But that's kind of what's happening when kids are getting their smartphone. They're given the smartphone, there's no support, just, hey, parents see it as just a transition from the shared device, the Amazon Fire or the iPad that everyone's using in the house. But no, that personal device, as we've said, leaving that on the desk, etc. That is you. That's an extension of you. All of a sudden, you've got a new limb. This is you, and you carry it around everywhere if you can. So there's that kind of idea of that support that's needed when, because as I explained, kids are going online, going to social media. The internet's a force for good. It's just not been designed for children. Children are trying to find their way through, and they will find some good stuff, but there are some things on there that we all know aren't going to be helpful. And we know that some of the issues that are identified are the fairly obvious ones, through hate speech, through to, as we mentioned before, the attention economy. So how can we develop a product which is going to be helpful there? So what do we make? I'll jump straight into that now. We looked at the idea of looking at messages, incoming and outgoing, and how might we reflect that to the user, and that became problematic, because we know a lot of the platforms that are really hurtful are the closed platforms, the ones that are encrypted, the WhatsApps, the Snapchats, where you've got a class group or you've got your friends, and it's those conversations, the ones that are really hurtful for the people who know you, not necessarily the strangers that you might have on a public platform. So, not that that's bad, just there's something that's amplified about your friends being abusive to you rather than. So what we did, we developed a keyboard that gives us access to inline to every message. As soon as you put a keyboard on your phone, that becomes the default keyboard for every text field that you open in every app, etc. So whatever they move, whatever they do, whatever they're inputting, our keyboard will be able to read what they're writing. But we're not keylogging. There was that message before about everyone thinks they're the good guys. Damn! Yes. Yeah, we don't look at any of the data. All we're doing is reflecting back to the child. So we've developed some machine learning, some natural language processing that analyses and will reflect back to the child. We're analysing so we can feed back on the face. How might somebody feel if they're looking at the message that you're currently typing? Very minority report. We're not waiting until the message has been sent. We're trying to reflect it back to you before you sent it. And then we've got hate toxicity classified in there as well, which is going to be. Plus, we've got a bunch of other constructs that allow us to look at a bunch of safeguarding issues and do specific messages and interventions based on that. And then we've got a companion app, which this is in the moment, this is looking at over time, this is insights. We know that our audience are, I've been saying 8 and above, but I'm going to say 7 and above now. Anyway, 7 and above. They don't know charts and graphs, so if we see this as a Fitbit for your digital well-being, if we'd done that as a bunch of charts, then it would have had no impact whatsoever. So we've done it in this kind of dashboard style, where the size of things shows the relevance of it in your life. You can see this person's quite a big YouTube user, quite a bit of Instagram, etc. And then here's some self-reporting. We'll step through. So on the keyboard, if I'm typing my number is, we've got the keyboard. We don't know. We have no idea what's happening behind that. We don't know the context. We don't know anything. But we do know you're typing out a number. So rather than us pointing a finger and saying, don't send that, we're just saying, are you sure? You should be sending that. So we kind of blur that message, but you're just giving a nudge to the child that maybe they should just have a think, just take a beat, think about whether they should send that. Then let's go into the more salacious stuff. That's what we'd call a passive intervention. So you can just ignore it and carry on. You don't have to interact with it. Then I think you are a B. On this project, you have to engage in quite a lot of profanity, etc. So we've got a WhatsApp group that I'd really hope the Daily Mail never get hold of. So yes, this is what we call a full intervention. We never at any point stop children from sending the message. We just put a little bit of friction in place so they can just close that down and carry on. But we've stepped in there and, as I said, are you sure? Do you want to make a decision? And there's lots of different language depending on what's happening up there about how we present it. And it's not always the same message. It's kind of rotating around different messages to try and put in there. We've got some positive reinforcement. I love you all. The faces feeding back. And then on some of the safeguarding areas, then we've got routes whereby we can intervene with the child, and the point is to try and get that child to interact with a trusted adult. That might be a parent, it might be an older sibling, or it might be a teacher, or indeed we will feed them through to Childline so they can have a real person they can speak to. We don't necessarily say parent, because some of the time parents are the problem, so we have to bear that in mind. And then we have kind of content for each of these. So here's one where somebody's suffering bullying, and then we've got stepped content so that they can just pick up behaviours. So editorial teams that are developing these. This is being developed all the time. So at the moment I took this screenshot. The first one is just a message like, is somebody bullying you? Then we've got Stacey Dooley, famous person if you don't know her, that kids kind of feel an affinity to, talking about advice. I didn't know anyone know what a listicle is? I didn't either until I started this project. 5 things to do if you're being bullied is a listicle. You can take, that's my takeaway from this whole session. We've got quizzes, we've got Joe Sucks, YouTube, that kind of thing. So just presenting new information in different ways so that you can try and get children to learn that they're not the only one. There are ways I can deal with this and pick up some resilient techniques. On the companion app, we've got a face. It's not a chatbot, but we do kind of reflect back. We try and get kids to diarise. So, how are you feeling? We kind of keep it simple, so we're not kind of leaning on somebody's emotional intelligence or having a big bunch of things to choose. They can just go, I'm good, or I'm not good, and then some more options come out, and you reduce that choice. And then the whole diarising, we've worked with specialists, with behavioural specialists, behavioural insights teams, and child psychiatrists. Everyone kind of pointed out if kids are diarising, if they're processing the things they're doing, that's when they start to understand the things that they've done that have helped and the things that they can then employ in the future. So techniques and just that understanding. So yeah, and then we've got some daily, monthly kind of feedback, etc. So we have those 2 elements, as I said. We've got the inline, that's got the ML, and the insights looking over time, and looking at things that are on the phone as well. The information we got about phone usage, like whether they use it at night, and we can reflect back. And again, we don't point a finger, we just say you were using it at night. We don't say you shouldn't be using it at night. just you used it last night for about 2 hours, and the kids got that knowledge and they can make their own decisions on it. So yeah, let me. So, quick one on why the BBC. I mentioned the public purposes. So to pull out the ones that are relevant, support learning for people of all ages, show creative, high quality, distinctive output, and represent and serve diverse communities of all the UK's nations and regions. Now, that kind of puts us in a good place. One of the things that we did at the beginning was sit down with 50 parents and we said, what do you want in the safeguarding space? What do you think is going to help? And 50 parents all said, we want a monitoring app, we want to be able to see what our children are doing on their phones. So we sat down with 50 children and said, what do you want in the safeguarding space? And they all got agreed that something should be done. And they all said, what we want is not a monitoring app. Yes. We don't want to be monitored. So a lot of evidence that the monitoring is actually negative rather than positive and can be used negatively. So we looked online, did a competitor analysis, and there were lots of monitoring apps out there, or a lot of monitoring apps. And we went and chatted to a few, and they're all startups, they're all VC funded, and those VC funders are saying, you know, here's some money. We want you to go and target the person with the money in the pocket. So the requirement there leans towards that person, not these people. So which leaves a massive hole in the market, because when we look, there is nothing that's done that's answering their requirements. It's all about that person's requirement. So that's where we see the BBC and the public purpose helping here, because we were able to say, well, actually, we could ignore that because we don't have profit motive. Public purpose says we can do this because we're not actually impacting the market either. So that. So yeah, the AI bit. So we worked with partners from Switzerland called Privately. They started off with some classifiers in the cloud, patent toxicity classifiers, and we said, oh, we want to start measuring emotion. So we can develop this is what we really want to do, and we looked at what was out there in terms of a framework we could use for measuring that emotion. Back in 2010, David Cameron looked across the pond and saw Obama, who had behavioural insights team. He also had was starting to talk about the idea that GDP isn't a great way of measuring how well a country is doing. Maybe there's other ways of doing it. David Cameron commissioned Warwick in Edinburgh University to go out and say, is there a measure of well-being that we can use to measure the nation? And as much as that didn't do anything in terms of the political sphere, it's actually they actually came up with some very good work, and that's used across the clinical space now, and is used by clinicians to diagnose people's well-being state. So we used that as a framework to try and look at the emotion, but there was 15 kind of factors in that, and that became really difficult across a single AI that was trying to measure those. So we reduced it down to these: anger, fear, sadness, joy, love, surprise, and neutral, which is kind of everything else. And surprise is kind of a bit silly anyways, and barely ever gets touched. But it left us one thing that we could do. So yeah, there's a model that is built around that. So the other two models, we've got the hate speech and toxicity. Hate speech being the classic hate speech across all of the characteristics, and then toxicity, just language that kind of is hurtful or perceived as toxic, that isn't hate speech. There's a massive overlap for that. Now the big thing that we had, that is my next one, is we wanted kids to trust this system. We wanted to feel that it was secure, and they also wanted it to be reliable. Well, we're putting words into the kids' mouths here, but yeah, we expected that they if they were going to form a relationship and feel trusted on their phone, that they want these things. So we had our AI 3.5 gigabit in the cloud. I thought, well, that's not going to work. That means every time a message is sent, we've got to send it out there and we can bring it back again. So we reduced it down to about 15 to 20 meg, and then we sat it on the phone. We worked closely with Apple and Google to try and get it onto both platforms through TensorFlow and CoreML on Apple. So they were very good. They gave access to the teams. We've got early libraries to help us with that flow, and then got it reduced down. We now score much better on that 15 to 20 meg than we ever did on the 3.5 gig in the cloud. And in fact, there are a lot of cloud services that we're scoring better than on the factors that we're measuring. So we feel that condensing it and encapsulating it entirely on the phone has been massively successful, and we still haven't seen anyone else do that yet. So data. So one of the things is trying to get the right data in place. One of the data sets that we used around hate speech and toxicity, and it still amuses me, and this is 3 years later, is the Wikipedia comments data set. We hate each other. It's a really, really useful set for hate. But as you can tell, that and some Twitter messages, those don't necessarily factor in children's language. So we had to go and try and find some children's language that we could seed into the system so that it became useful for our target audience. And when I was digging into it, we realised like children are developing their own language online. We've got the ChatSpeak, we've got different platforms of different languages and different ways of communicating. So we did, one of the jobs I picked up was to build a glossary of all of these elements. Another quick test here. Anyone know what that means?
Going to?
Very good, yes.
Come on, we say that in the US.
Yes, it's fine. Yeah, some of it's bled into adult language as well. So why do you think that? Where do you think that came from?
We're fixing to.
Yeah.
Fixing to.
Yeah.
You might think that. It's also, if you just move your fingers slightly left, there's a mistype. From gonna, you get thinner. I was trying to dig back onto each of these. So yeah, that's going to. Okay. What about this one then? This is on Twitch, the gaming platform, the game streaming, and you watch people play games.
Honestly?
No, it's kind of grief or sadness. So somebody in the game has just lost or fallen over or had a big crash, and people commenting will just go, "Oh, Bible thump," and it's an emote. So if they type that, a little character thing will come out and represent itself as a little animated GIF. But they'll do the Bible thump, and just do a big stream of them. You get all this whole streams of. Again, this is language in development. Anyone?
A kick out?
Yeet!
Yeet someone out or something?
It has utility. It's an exclamation. So I'll dig into yeet in a second. So I pulled the glossary together and I wrote a note to the team, as you do when you're a bit of a sad dancing dad in the corner. I wrote this message: yeet, no printer, just facts. I hope you stand the dock. Don't leave me on red. I am bold, John. That's all in the word. Here's the work I've finished. I hope you like it. Let me know how it's going on. Right, I'm out of here. I'm done. So I've got teenage kids, 15 and 17, and I showed them the note, and I said, "Look, I've done this glossary, and here's my note." And they said, "You're such an embarrassing idiot." Yeet only ever goes at the end. What are you talking about? Oh, what? And I went, yeah, it's a call sign. It's the end of a message. It has grammar, and you don't understand the grammar. So okay, I dug into that.
Hey Terry, you want some?
That's where it came from. This is a vine of a girl who gets given a can, who does that, and just says yeet and throws it over her friends. That defines the grammar. So I dug into that further and thought, no, that's not the first instance of yeet. That she said yeet because there was another. So in the space of 4 years, it's now common parlance to say yeet on most platforms, and is kind of adopted all over the place. So what I'm trying to get at here with this is that we've not only do we have to deal with language, the English language, we have to deal with new forms of it, and it's all bleeding in, and it's happening very quickly. Language takes a very long time to evolve. Not now. Yeah. So one question we keep being asked in terms of the AI that we've got: does it work? And it's quite a tricky one to answer. I was talking at lunch, and the answer we've got is we don't know. It's educated guesses. We've got the best educated people we can find to help us with the guesses. But there are some things you can measure. One of the things that's a problem. Okay, let's do the card thing. If you shuffle a pack of cards, give it a decent shuffle. If you have it in hearts, clubs, spades, and diamonds, ace to king, all the way through in that order, the odds of you hitting that with a single shuffle, 1 in 10 to the power of 68. That's 68 zeros after it. So that means it's probably around the same as the number of atoms in the galaxy. So is the chance of you hitting that. So the chance when you give it a decent shuffle, the odds that somebody else has done exactly that same order before, virtually zero. So when you shuffle the cards, it's pretty much a brand new shuffle every single time. Now, that's with 52 cards. The English language, 170,000 plus words. It's not quite got that entropy of randomness that is in there. It's got, it's ordered, so that's why you can build an AI around that and try and focus in. But it also means that we'll get asked questions like, does it do sarcasm? Does it do irony? Well, no. But if we had enough data on that, then we could train the system to recognise that as well. So one of the things that we had, certainly on the emotions, when we're talking about the binary classifiers, we got the hate and toxicity, then we were scoring 95% in precision recall ranked F1 on those, and that's big numbers, and we're getting quite accurate with that. But when we're talking about the emotions, then if I say, I hate that, I love you so much, then all of a sudden you've got factors in that sentence that is quite difficult even for a human to do. So we're talking to our senior stakeholders, and we said, on emotions we're scoring 65%, and around 65%, and they're saying that doesn't sound very good. I want to say, no, it's really good, and no, it just doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound good 65%. And I spent months trying to explain, and they kept saying, no, go back and make it better. And we're nudging up by 0.2%, 0.1%, desperately trying really hard. It was only after chatting to lots of data scientists that we realised, well, actually, we should do the Kasparov test and just sit down with our humans. That's what we did. So we sat down and we realised that humans are only scoring 61 to 62%, and our system was. Well, that was until we got to the end of the test, and our creative director, who hadn't been involved, came in and said, let me sit down. And damn. Now he's a freak. Look. That's the system. These are the humans. That's kind of. So it's at that point that the senior stakeholders go, we get it now. Great. So part of this, as much as we're working with language, we had to work out how to explain what we were doing to those stakeholders, and that was really useful. Where we are now, in that does it work question is what is the efficacy of the interventions that we're doing? If we can intervene, we want to deliver the right information, the right content at the right time. So we have the full interventions. We want to measure those and how impactful they are. Do they stop children, or do they go back and change their messages? Some of that we can do with collecting data on whether they've changed a thing. We don't collect any data, we don't keylog, we don't do anything like that, we don't collect any of that private information, but we will collect a thing that maybe an intervention has gone and somebody went and changed it. We don't, not interested in the personal data, we just some of the movement around that, so that we can infer from. So also passive interventions, how impactful have they been? Have people gone, not done it, or have they followed through and looked at information? The feedback mechanics even more complicated. If we've shown a face, have people changed about it? So we're looking at, we're working with Manchester University and some other academic institutions in line to run some trials. That will be diary studies and focus groups, but also looking at the data and getting that full measurement. The other thing is, how do we develop the content to be more impactful? So the intervention content, etc. We've got videos and quizzes and the rest of it. We know that the quizzes are working. That's what we get from our focus groups at the moment on the data back. When we started this and we looked at the data for 8 to 12-year-olds and cyberbullying, etc., and we thought there must be lots of it because they're always talking about it in the paper. No, zero. There's nothing for 8 to 12-year-olds. No data whatsoever, no data sets, no academic studies, nothing about that age group and how they're using their phones and what they're dealing with. So there is potential with AIMIT for us to start finding some data and providing that to academic institutions, which we're talking about at the moment. Sorry, yeah, I've never seen the programme, I just like the pun. I guess we've got a panel later, so we'll talk about a few of these things. So let me have a look. We worked with Alan Turing Institute, and we were looking at their fast track principles, and where are we? So yeah, let me quickly go through. So when we started it as well, we started all talking to other organisations about what are your ethics and what are the principles that you're using in terms of AI development. We wanted to be cleaner than clean. We wanted to make sure that we'd asked every person to make sure that we were doing this right. And we found that virtually no one had AI data principles in place. But even on some of the organisations they won't name, as very big organisations saying, well, we should go to the senior data scientists and see what they think, whether we should do a thing or not. And I go, oh my word. So this started, was a catalyst for a conversation, this and a couple of projects in the BBC where we started developing our own machine learning engine principles, that we call it MLEP. It's not that catchy, but yeah, so they cover values, audiences, responsibility. I'll quickly read them out. On values: upholding trust, putting audiences at the heart of everything, celebrating diversity, delivering quality and value for money, and boosting creativity. Audiences: using data to improve audience experiences, use data transparently, and responsibility. The BBC takes full responsibility for all of the engines. Machine learning outcomes are compliant with BBC editorial values. Algorithms sit alongside editorial curation. Now the curious thing is, the BBC has been running since 1923, nearly 100 years old, and it took about 70 odd years for editorial values to be actually listed out and put in place. Yet here we're kind of having to rush to the tune of new technology that's coming out to put values in place so that we can be responsible and make the right ethical choices in some of these areas that we know that pretty much everyone will be working in very soon. These are systems that work. So what we've applied, certainly in the data privacy is sacrosanct. We have no interest and no. Of course, we would love that data. It would be amazing, but we'll also break our red lines. So we don't want it. So privacy first approach, no key login. It's entirely encapsulated. All the localized storage, so there's no central storage of any data whatsoever, so there's no login, there's no parental sign-in, so we don't require that. We work with the ICO on that to make that. We capture false positive reports. The kids can say, actually, no, you told me a thing and I don't think it was right. So that allows us to grow a map and write out maps, and then we can find biases within the system and find data to fix that. That's very manual at the moment. So we are looking at privacy preserving techniques around, and if you're in data science, then federated learning, differential privacy as some way that we might do distributed computing and doing some on-device learning and then just showing weights and values that aren't private data. But a lot of that is just trying to establish what is private data amongst that, and we're working through it. So yeah, that's an R&D piece at the moment that we want to apply to the project. So yeah, that's where we are. I know we probably wouldn't make the time slightly now. So I guess we might have 1 minute for questions.
I'm trying your app. Yeah, so the question, you just downloaded it?
Yeah, so yeah, that's a good point actually. We launched before Christmas and rolling out. So it was kind of a soft launch. We've got a few tens of thousands of users now. It's going well. When you're developing the things aside from the AI are trying to get it to work on systems. No, BBC's never made a keyboard before, and virtually no one's ever made a keyboard before. So trying to fight through that technological hurdle. The other AI we had to apply on there was next word prediction, because we thought we had to do it on the devices, but suddenly that became problematic, so we had to build next word prediction models in there as well. And we took advantage and made sure it was very child-focused dictionaries we were using for next word prediction, so it will predict some of those chat speak type things. So just to feel that kids, suddenly there's a keyboard that's for kids.
Obviously, you mentioned before that the language is always changing. How
it sounds like it's going to be very difficult to introduce the new yeet. And another question that came up is, what about, I know this is English language, but how feasible would another data set, so language from a local community where the students are maybe have another language as their first language?
Yes, so I thought you were going to say Latin then.
Sorry.
It's a very exclusive community. Yes, so in terms of different languages, then bizarrely, and looking at the roots of language, we tried German and French in it, and it's not scoring 95%, but we're scoring 80-odd% accuracy in languages that we haven't even trained it on, because they're rooted languages and the engrams that we use and have partials there. I was chatting to Finnish Broadcasting yesterday, and I was saying, it'd be brilliant, they're all European languages are fine, and they pointed me to a chart that showed a huge tree with all the Indian languages and all that, and then, but over here there's a little sprig, which is Finnish, which has no relation to any other language. So I was slightly embarrassed after they let me speak for an hour, saying how well it's going to work, and I kind of pointed that out.
Because I can see my area is actually Japan, and Japan has some of the highest levels of bullying in school children, the highest rates of suicide in school children, and I can see it being very useful, that kind of controlling language. And so just kind of wondering, like you mentioned about trust, did you make it open source?
At the moment, no, because we're working with a third party and they've got some IP in the game, so that's made it a little bit awkward, certainly in terms of the data sets, because we've developed the data sets together. So our legal are talking to their legal to try and, I know the Alan Turing Institute are collecting together data sets, open data sets that everyone can use, and there's conversations about, if a lot of that data has privacy or can be triangulated, etc., then are there ways that you can build a core model that can be shared and then built on, as opposed to the root data set. So there might be ways of doing that. The ongoing conversations that the Office for AI, etc., are working on.
How feasible is it for your system to be explainable, so that the kid can say, this thing is wrong, can you please explain to me why did you give me that suggestion based on what I said?
Yes, so we, as part of our ethical things, the transparency is absolutely key, so we do kind of explain, we don't say this is a thing, we say we use language this is more blurry, this we think this, as opposed to that definitive this is. So when kids tap on it, they can go through and dig into some of the data. We're not giving them the root data at the moment. So we did have that on when we were doing the original beta trial, and kids did love going and looking at the numbers. But then we felt that we'd have to explain the numbers, even though it was just a bunch of percentages. Some kids would come back, that's amazing. But it was also show that we set our thresholds quite high, and that kind of exposes that some of the models don't move particularly well, and we've got frameworks around them that kind of pull them in the right direction. It's like trying to pull up a blind, and it's kind of doing all that. We've got that framework just desperately holding it in place. So things like, we trained it on sentences, but sentences don't appear from nowhere. You just got to start typing it, and then as it moves along. So when we got the first iteration, we're sat there typing it, and that face is just going to go. Okay. No, that's not the reaction we want. So our solution there was very basic. We got 1 million sentences and looked at all the commonality of all the starts of sentences before it gets to the subject. I want to. Let's all go. Type thing. Got all the top 10,000 and just used that as a whitelist. All of a sudden, 99% of the problem disappeared. It was really good. As soon as the subject comes in, so now it starts feeding back to you. It doesn't do to that point. So there's lots of things in place that are holding it together. There is a blog post as well that explains a lot of that stuff.
If we have time?
Yeah.
You might have the same word used in many different ways in different places. For example, you might the word picnic might be used in a very adoring and compassionate way in one school, and it can be a bullying word in another one. How much do you think that this app can be kind of personalized around a, say, school, and based on that, basically, where do you think this would fit in like that sort of context, different contexts?
So where we are at the moment is minimum viable product. Some of the product features that we're looking at is reinforcement. So trying to learn your personal language, how you as a person engage in banter, etc. So that if it can recognise your banter, then it doesn't necessarily have to intervene. It can be more tailored. If you're using the word in a certain way, then maybe it can pick up and just acknowledge that to you, or you can interact with the system and try and shape it around you. So those are the things that we're looking at, so it feels more personalised and more relevant to children who are using it. We're also trying to make sure a lot of this was optimisation, because we realised it's all very well making a thing that works on the latest iPhone, but we know that the kids who are in care, the kids who are in the poorer families, are going to have devices that 40, 50 quid devices that don't, and even hand-me-downs. So the system needs to work on those, and that's been core for us. I just want to make sure that we have both promotion, so we're pushing it in those areas through the care system and through clinicians, and also that it will work on those. There are some that we just couldn't get it to go on. Some of those devices were 10 or 15 pound phones that do exist, just haven't got the juice to do anything. But I'm sure the users of those phones are well aware of that already.